Question over back here. If I don't say yes, I'm going to be very surprised.
You know, that's difficult because who am I to keep the score? And this is a question raised in the Old Testament book of Job. When Job finally meets and encounters God, he's got some legitimate questions for God and some legitimate beefs with God, but as it ends up, he sees from his perspective, is he really in a position to ask the question? So who can really score God? If God is the foundation for what we understand is good and is just and right, then who actually is available to sit in judgment? If that's perspective, then I would say no one is in that situation. God is good by definition. We therefore expect it to be consistent in how we understood it and see that goodness. But if I come and say, it looks to me like God has been unjust, I'm likely to go back and say, have I misunderstood what's going on? Because am I really in a position to say that the one who's the foundation for what's good and just has acted unjustly?
So our atheist friends would like to add to that answer?
Yeah,
To answer that question.
it's entirely possible that God is actually very bad and wants us to act badly, and he's actually got a problem of good, because human beings, using their free will, actually keep doing good things, keep looking after one another, keep saving things, keep donating to charities and all of this sort of thing. And God might be very upset about this because he's basically bad, and he doesn't want human beings to exercise their free will to do the good, but he's given them free will, so he can't help it. Now, if you think about it, there'd be no difference in the way the world is now if that is true than if the other proposition is true. The world would probably look exactly the same as it does now.
Up the back, and then up the back first.
My question is directed to Mr. Worthing. You spoke about how the Gospels were being constantly re-updated and changed so that you had a perhaps more clear definition of what God's word truly was. But for example, one of the first rules that came out of the Bible 1,000 years ago was that if we see homosexuals, they should be stoned to death. Now, if social change had not come along and the gay rights movement said, well, actually that's not a good thing to do, if we still continue to follow the word of God and continue, and that we still practice that act of stoning homosexuals, my question is that how does we progress if we continue along? I mean, killing people isn't right, but how do we as a society develop if we still continue along, like, say, a path like that or an action like that?
I'm actually Mark Worthing. Do you mean me or do you mean this fellow?
Oh,
We switched the order just to throw you off. It was a tactic that we used, but I think he means you.
Can you repeat the question again? Yeah, that's yeah. It gives me more time to think because it's a good question.
My question is, so one of the words of God is that if we meet a homosexual, we should stone him to death.
Yeah.
Now, social change has come along and said, well, the gay rights movement has evolved. Would we still, do you think that if we still, take the word of God, would we still be going to the house of Freddie Mercury and dropping a boulder on his head?
Without wanting to make any comment on Freddie Mercury's sexuality or otherwise in my answer, I mean, what comes to my mind off the top of my head is the story in the Gospels where the woman is brought in to be stoned for adultery, and Jesus writes in the sand, and there's a sense that the grace and compassion that's seen in Jesus is overruling and adapting and changing what is there in the Old Testament. And so one of the Christian responses would be that goodness is most clearly seen in the person of Jesus. Yeah, and so the adaptation is around that and not just around the gay rights movement in history. So I also think there's a sense that one thing about doing Christian theology is the ongoing engagement with reason, with the world around you, and with the hope that you do continue to learn and to grow in those encounters. And to me, that's part of what makes Christianity attractive, is that we're not committed just to a dogma of a literalism that just says it's there, we've got to follow it, because the text itself is complex and there are other sources of knowing and of intuition. The question around personal revelation was part of that, and so it's that complex of bringing those together.
I've got a lot of my questions, so just very quickly, or if you got another question, could you wait for us, if we might? Start here, then we've got here, start me.
Okay, one of the directors, one from the atheists. It seems to me that atheism is correct, but your particular strategy of suggesting that ethics is subjective is a rather unfortunate direction for atheists to go in. And I think on that issue, these guys are on the correct side. So you need some story about how ethics will be objective. Now this will depend, of course, on what ethics means. But one of the things that seems to me is something like it couldn't possibly be the case that this wasn't the morally right thing to do. We couldn't change our mind about this issue. It must be like this. For example, torturing babies for fun. Now, you just can't imagine a situation in which that wouldn't be wrong. Now, you're simply suggesting, oh, well, perhaps in some suitable evolutionary stage, people might come to think it's wrong, or think it's right. But now, many of us think that that could ever possibly change. It's got to be, if you tell a story, that that will always be wrong, and if you can't do that, I don't think this guy should tell us a better story as to why. Because if God wasn't there, it would still be wrong. And I presume never going to tell us that it would suddenly become the right what wasn't. So anyway,
Yes, we have taken a very evolutionary approach to examining ethics, and you can see that that evolutionary preparation for dealing with moral dilemmas serves us well when it comes to not killing people, not stealing. What happens if someone wants IVF funding for their next baby after they've had an abortion for the twins that weren't the girl that they wanted to replace the little girl that they'd lost? That situation that is being considered in Australian medical circles now, it doesn't serve us particularly well, that evolutionary preparation. But we still have philosophers that are working through those things from first principles as best they can. The idea that the situation could change so that my current don't kill people because it's bad stance turns to, well, you need to feed your family, that person's trying to harm them, kill that person. That switch in my morality is feasible. I'd want to know what sort of situation you would posit that evolutionarily would take us to the point that torturing babies for fun was good. I can't imagine that happening. So I think within the realm of the possible experiences that humanity will have, subjective morality will serve us.
Okay, I've got questions here, then there, then here. So, Tony.
Thanks for the debate. I wanted to address myself to Leigh. I appreciated the evolutionary approach that you were putting forward. On the one hand, you talked about altruism as being innate in many species. And of course, there's also the competition that is necessarily part of evolution as well. I guess the question is for me, when these clash, when competition clashes with altruism, what do we do? And that's, at that point, the Christian teaching of love your enemy does kick in, and it is different if you respond according to defining your neighbour as even others who are not part of your group. Because altruism, of course, is for group win. So I'd like to hear, how do you manage that, the clash between competition and altruism as the basis for defining group?
I'd like to defer to a much greater ethicist than myself and use Peter Singer's argument that's based on our basic altruism. You might be familiar with the drowning child analogy, that if you see someone directly in front of you, and then you would pull them out straight away, pull them out of the out of the puddle, and that is no less true if this is a child that is on the other side of the world. So I think that there's a basic with globalisation and this idea of competition that Matt quite terrifyingly presents. You're still coming back to some really basic, the 5 basic things, like the care for others, fairness and loyalty. And it's an interplay, like it's complex. There's not just, it's not prescriptive, like there is a certain interaction between the things that I've mentioned, the evolutionary morality that we have. So, yeah.
The question of what is so debated within the Church belief in God, don't you start using tools that sort of undermine the argument that they can be about God, things like the non-theist Apologetics, and that's what obviously theists is to solve their differences and not things of interpretation. So do you have any things that theists use that are open to non-theists that use to become more astute?
Yeah, if I answer the question quickly, I don't really think it's an issue for us because we're not saying that only theists can work out what's good, or only Christians can do what's good, but there is such a thing as good. And we do believe it's objective, and I since looking back to this, even Matthew here with the illustration someone pushed about 14 babies, and no, that is objectively bad, we can go there is something there. We would say that anyone can recognize these, but when we ask why is there such a thing as objective good, why can we say this is always good, this is always bad, why can people recognize it? Because the world is built upon the foundation of God's embedded in fabric and structure, whether you recognize or see it or not. So if you happen to not believe there's a God or a different God than I do, I wouldn't be shocked at all if you use similar kind of argument, see similar things, maybe come to similar conclusion and show up the same rally that I would to protest something you see as bad. I wouldn't be shocked or surprised saying what are you as an atheist or a Muslim or a New Age are doing here. I would just recognize that you would see that as well as I would, but then I'd ask the deeper question, why is that? What's the foundation for that? And that's what we were getting at. Not that these tools or this point of view is somehow exclusive privilege of theists or Christians and that no one else can see them or that we have an edge on church in them.
Okay, thank you. Becky.
Yeah, thank you. I want to ask a question that I used to ask whatever I hear, any point of view. And that seems particularly relevant to this particular debate because I think that given that the existence of God has been debated for millennia, I feel, I'm just wondering what each side would suggest as evidence that might actually go against this point of view or disprove their perspective. In other words, for starters, what would be asked, what would help as some sort of evidence that would go against the conclusion that you can't have good without God? And the same for the atheist side, what would count against the idea that there is
I'm really asking against good without God.
the reason I'm asking the question is because both seem to be closed systems. How do you